everyone, Salute here, and in this video I'm bringing you the Marauder Multishot build for speed solo greater with farming. Now this build is just insane. Even with just the basic set, you can farm GR 100s really easily, and the scaling is just incredible. As you can see here on the screen, I'm farming 120s solo, and we're less than a week into the season. So how does the build work? So playstyle wise, it is all about your sentries. You want to keep your vengeance and your companion on cooldown all the time, and then it's just a matter of placing sentries down next to enemies. And whenever you find a lead pack, you want to place at least 3 sentries so you can easily blast it down. And then you want to use Evasify every 4 seconds or so to proc your reps of clarity. This build is a lot of fun and really strong. So where does the damage come from? Let's have a look at the reworked Marauder set. So the 2-piece calls all companions to your side, so you get a bunch of different buffs from that. The 4 set makes it so your sentries also cast your hatred spenders, i.e. our multishot, when you do, and also automatically. And your 6 set gives a 12,000% multiplier per sentry you have active. That's also why it's important to quickly place down 5 new sentries whenever you enter a new map. So we have a 60% 1000 multiplier when we have all our sentries down, which is just insane. If you like this guide, make sure to give it a like, and also check out the really cool variation with this kind of build with cluster arrow. It'll be linked in the top now. Our damage is also increased a lot by the new season 25 theme, which is the soul shards. So for the weapon soul shard, we're using the Dregs of Lies, and we're using the one with the 0 to 100 stacks. So basically every time you hit an enemy, you'll see a stack that goes from 0 to 100. You can see it on my bar now in the game. This is just a massive damage buff, and it's really nice. Besides that, you want some fire damage or maybe some crit chance. For the helmet, we're using the Sliver of Terror, and we're using the one where you get attack speed and crit chance for every skill on cooldown. And you also get a good amount of reduced damage and damage increase per skill on cooldown. So for the gear, we're using a Yanks recurve, and you of course want a really high secondary. Besides that, you want some percent damage and some cooldown reduction. And if you can't find a prime like I have, you also want a high resource cost reduction roll. For the rings, we're using Convention of Elements and Obsidian with the Zodiac. Now this is a really interesting ring because it reduces the cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a hatred spending attack. And our multishot fires really quickly, and therefore we get a lot of cooldown reduction from this, which is required to have a high uptime of Vengeance Seath. For the gloves, you want dexterity, crit, and then maybe some area damage, some cooldown or attack speed. You could also get a quad factor and have 4 different stats. For the gloves, you want dexterity, area damage, resource cost, and sentry damage. For the helmet, you want dexterity, crit chance, and multishot. For the chest, you want dexterity, vitality, and sentry damage. Now for the belt and pants, we're using the Captain Crimson set. This gives us a lot of cooldown reduction and resource cost reduction, and also damage and toughness. And on these two, you want dexterity, vitality, and always. And for your boots, you want dexterity, vitality, and multishot damage. For the amulet, using the Scourge amulet, you ideally want fire, crit, but something like this would also work really well. Just make sure you get fire damage and crit hit damage, as these are really big multipliers for damage. For the bracers, we're using Reps of Clarity for toughness. Make sure you get fire damage, crit chance, and a high secondary. For the crew, we're using the Bombardier's Rucksack. Make sure you get a high percent of sentry damage, and then attack speed, crit chance, area damage, cooldown, resource cost, whatever you can find. Something like this works really well. Now for the cube, we're using Deadman's Legacy in our weapon slot. This is a massive multiplier for multishot. For the belt, we're using Sori's Secret for toughness. And for jewelry slot, we are of course using the Ringer of Ral Gundar. This allows us to have 2 pieces of Captain Crimson's, 5 pieces of Marauder, and still gain the full effect of both. For the skills, we're using Evasify. This is to proc our Reps of Clarity. We are using Multishot Arsenal. This is our damage. We're using Sentries with Polar Station to kite the mobs and also trick our Bane of the Trap with the slow. We're using Companion, and it doesn't matter which one you pick because you get all the runes anyway. We're using Vault Tumble to get around the map easier and to hunt for elites. And we're using Vengeance Seath to have massive hatred regen. For the passives, we're using Tactical Advantage to get around the map even easier. I'm playing with awareness because I'm hardcore, but you could also easily swap this to something like Call the Weak. Then we're also playing with Custom Engineering because we're playing a sentry build. And for the last passive, we're playing with Ballistic, which is just a really nice damage increase. And for the follower, make sure you get a Flavor of Time and Nemesis bracers to really take advantage of the pylons within the rift. And an Oculus ring with a high secondary doesn't hurt either, as long as you get into the rings. And this build requires a high amount of cooldown reduction, so if you can't have all the skills for Enchantress because you will die, make sure you pick this skill with cooldown down here. Make sure to check out one of the 2 videos up here now, as they are some of the best builds and guides for season 25. And I'll see you in one of those videos. Peace out, folks.